Shawna and Jody here with Real Sisters, Real Talk.
We're glad to have you joining us as we talk about growing in our faith with God. Welcome back. We are really excited to be here today. And I just have to tell you, one of the super fun things about us getting to record every week is that Shauna and I get to spend time together. And so this is such a joy for us. We have a
I
blast. And yeah,
I love you, girl. This is so fun.
I love you too. We're just grateful that you guys are willing to come on the journey with us. So,
That's right.
um, we are hot into spring and moving into summer, and there's a lot of transitions in seasons, and so I feel like we've been in just kind of this season of transition, which means life in the church, because I work for a church, becomes a bit frenzied, I would
Mm.
say. And so I'm feeling like I've closed off a number of things that I was doing, and I'm launching some new things, and I'm teaching a bunch, which I love to do. And so that's super fun. But I also feel like there's just kind of a lot on my plate right now, and especially this last couple of weeks. And so this past week, just kind of evaluating, are all of those things I'm supposed to be doing? So Shauna, your
That's
schedule
good.
gets really crazy too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so those seasons of like, are all of these things the right yeses
Mm-hmm.
for this season? And so one of the things, just like even as you and I process out together, one of the things I wanted to bring up today is a way to evaluate that. So really leaning into this really crazy couple of weeks I'm in right now, it's all good stuff and all fun stuff. But if I can look at what my values are, I can then discern, did I say yes to the right things, or did I just say yes to everything because I thought it'd
Mm.
be fun?
Right.
And so that's kind of what I wanted to wrestle out today. So like, even as you say yes to an opportunity, um, I was going to say whether it's something you really want to do or not, but probably mostly if it's something you really want to do.
Hmm.
What's your process of kind of evaluating if that's the right yes?
Oh wow. I love diving into this whole conversation about values and discerning kind of what are those, those tried and true things that it's not that they can't change with time, but I when I think about values, I think about something that's pretty deeply rooted. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty
Yep.
consistent regardless of the circumstances that you're in. Like it's not like, well, I'm this way at work, but I'm this way at home. It's like, no, this is just what I value, and it doesn't matter what context you put me in. It's going to be like this. And I haven't done a ton of work on identifying what my values are. So that's kind of what excites me about this conversation, because I want to learn from you and how I know you've walked through the process and you've done some study and you've done some work. And I'm hoping that actually I'm going to get some clarity about what they are. There are some things, that I maybe consider to be curiosities as values of mine. I would say, if I were to back up just a minute, I would say if you ask me what I value, I would say, well, I value my faith, and I value my family, and and I might even be tempted to say things that I think I'm supposed to say that aren't reflected in my life.
Right.
And I I think that's a true indicator of what a value is like, are the behaviors of your life, do they actually, the behaviors of your life reflect what you value, regardless of what you say the right answer is, right?
Amen. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, and one of the things I want to talk about today too is to identify what our values are. And yes, 100%, we we have these things that we think we should say, and we maybe even want to say are our values, but are they really our values? And so the kind of the next piece to that we'll talk about today is, what are our ideals, those things that we wish our values were,
Hmm.
but they aren't necessarily really our filter of making decisions. Before you go on, I'm going to give a definition of values, if that's okay with
All
you.
right. Yeah.
um Yep. So this comes from, I've talked about this curriculum before. It's a company called Vantage Point 3 They run out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and they put out this curriculum called The Journey. And it's this 21-week process that is an in-depth dive of who is God, who am I, and what does God have me here for. And I love these people. The people who run it, they're very dear to me, but I also love the curriculum that they've written, their heart in choosing this curriculum. But so this is one of the practices that you do in this curriculum, and it's defining your values versus your ideals, what you wish your values were. So a definition of a value, it's a deeply held belief that possesses the worth to influence decisions made and actions taken. So it's almost like it's our values, what we hold important to us are kind of the filters of how we make decisions
Hmm.
or how we kind of move through life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. So tell me about the
Yeah.
you
So,
said values versus ideals. So tell me how that is different from
yeah.
ideals.
So an ideal would be something that I wish was my value. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
So if I said, so you talked about like, yeah, my faith is my value, my family is my value. Um, if um, if you looked at how you process decisions, if you look at how you spend your money, if you look at the things you think about, like you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about um, you are constantly ruminating on those those things show what your true values are. So I could say like that my family is a value. And I would even say we need to be specific. So if you said family is your value, I'm not going to put you in. So if you said family is your value, and then like I'll give an example, like my husband, when he has family as one of his values as well, but like for me and probably for you, time with our family is a
Mm,
value. Where for like when our kids were young, providing for the family was a high
okay.
value for my
Gotcha.
husband because that's his his role as the husband, the man in the family. And so there's even identifying things about the words that you say. So we can say faith. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
I just have to interject something. So I just got home from work. I'm a morning show host and I work full time. I just got home from work and I love my family. I love spending time with my family. But I got to tell you, I hit the garage door opener and the garage door went up and there were 0 cars in the garage and I did a personal little happy dance
I get it.
because I was like, "Oh, I am home alone." So I could tell you I value time with my family. But the truth of the matter is, I do a little happy dance when I hit the garage door opener and there are no cars in my garage. So, would that be an example of just kind of maybe it's not about lack of love for my family. Come on. We're not even going to go there.
Right.
But the fact that I do have maybe one of my values is alone time or personal time.
Absolutely. I mean, I would think that's absolutely one of your values. And so, like, even though time with your family can still be a value, but if you are not, if the space is not happening for you to be alone, then you kind of see that value kind of tip on the top a little bit. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting to see it that way. So, a value versus an ideal, though, I think. So okay, so I'm going to give an example.
Yeah.
If I said that time with my family is a value, and then um somebody maybe Monday nights are the one night my whole family's home, and somebody asked me to be a part of this book club on Monday nights, and it's going to be from 6 to 9 on Monday nights, the hours that I would be able to spend with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling like I need to say yes to that. The real value that I'm living out of is pleasing people.
Ooh. Wow.
And right. And the ideal is time with my family is a value. But what decision am I making? What filter is going through to make that decision? So if my first filter, I mean, our first filter as believers in Christ should always be, is this something God is inviting me into?
Right.
But if my next filter is, will I upset this person if I say no?
Mhm.
and then how does this impact my family? Then my real value there is pleasing
That's
this
really good.
person.
That's really good. And so that makes me, what comes to mind for me, and this isn't like super deep or anything, but I have learned, because my alarm goes off at 3:50 or 3:45 a.m.
Yes.
I have learned to really value sleep and to be super disciplined about my bedtime. So,
Right.
something really cool and really fun will be happening that I want to be a part of from like 7 to 9. And I'm like, and I literally won't go. I just won't go because I know that that means that I'm not going to be at my best for the morning show tomorrow, right? So,
Yes.
does that fit into the conversation?
That is a perfect example because you're getting enough sleep so that you are. And you know what? Like sleep might not even be your value. It might even be being in a good, healthy place for your job. Like
Mm,
that's the true value. And so then the decision you have to make is to get enough sleep, which means you have to make a decision to miss out on some things because you actually want to um, match your value.
yeah,
And
I want
so,
to show
yeah,
up in a
it's
healthy way. Yeah.
right, right. And so I think like I'm going to read. There's a quote by Dr. Henry Cloud. And he says, if you want to know what we value, then we have to look at how we spend our time, money, energy, etc. In other words, where our treasure is, there our heart
Mm,
is also.
yeah.
So if we actually look at what we invest energy and time and all of those things in, that will show us what our true values are. So I encourage people write down 5 values that you think are values that you live out of, and then look at how you spend your time. Look at
Mm,
how you spend your money. Look at the things that are kind of the filters, and then write down what your values really are. Like, what are you living in right now? And then in a column next to it, put down the things that you wish were your values. One of the great things about this curriculum, I did it for the first time in like 2010, I think. And so I had these values um and then I had this list of ideals. And when I when I went back and did it like 2 years later, I realized that my ideals had moved into my values column
that's cool.
because yes, because I had identified of what I wanted my values to be.
Hmm.
And so I could start to be intentional. So I think too often we just go through life and another week goes by and another month goes by and we're just kind of
Yep.
doing what we do. When we really take time to evaluate this kind of stuff, we can start being intentional about our decisions.
Hmm.
So even like this week when things are so crazy, that's one of the things that I have to evaluate is, did I say yes to all the right things? Is it just a busy couple of weeks? And that is okay. That's just life. And I really do think each thing that is on my plate right now is what I am supposed to do and it fits in my values. They just all happen to land in the same 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's hard. What you were talking about, I've got a quote on my phone. I just pulled it up real quick, but it says, "The cost of procrastination is the life that you could have lived." And you were talking about, how we just put things off and just put things off and just put things off.
Yeah.
So I've put this in front of me, not, I was going to say not because I'm a big procrastinator, because I don't think that I am a procrastinator per se, but I know there's something that God is prompting me to do, to participate and be a part of, that I've been dragging my feet about. And for me, that's honestly, that's an area where I feel like if I'm slow to obey, but I'm still moving in that direction, like it's not straight up rebellion or like disobedience.
Right. I'm walking. Like it's like, it's
Yeah.
time to go to bed to our kids and they're like slow
Yeah,
motion.
like a sloth. I'm obeying you.
Crawling inch by
Yeah.
inch on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, I pull that off at 53. It ain't so cute at 53, but I still do it with
I
the Lord.
know.
Yeah. So just
Yeah,
knowing what knowing what our values are and being intentional about it, like naming them, even establishing what the ideals are, you know what I mean? And being honest with ourselves about that reality and having that in front of us can help us to move in that direction. Like, rather than like me sitting here saying, I'm not exactly sure I mean, I've got an idea of what my values are. But
right.
I'm looking forward to doing this work.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, I think that we have this idea of this is a bad value, this is a good value. Like,
Hmm.
as believers in Christ, anything to do with God is a good value, and anything to do with, so then that means I need to say yes to everything at church. And that's actually not healthy and good and right. And so,
Yeah.
like, even one of the values that I ended up having to, as I evaluated my time, I had to actually go back and add on is like, physical health is a value to me because I actually try to eat well. I don't always do that. I do like chocolate, dark
Oh,
chocolate.
yum.
I just really,
Girl,
anyway,
that's
I
good for
don't
you.
always,
Just read the
yeah,
articles that
right?
say that it's good for you, and then you're okay.
It is. I know. And just keep those in my phone, right? Um, but I also, I exercise 5 days a week and we walk. I mean, I'll be
Yeah,
totally
you
honest.
walk.
We walk twice a day because our dog needs to be walked twice a day because our dog is crazy. I will, in her defense, she was a rescue. She had a traumatic beginning in her little world. Little world, she's 80 pounds.
At some
But the
point,
truth
she
is,
needs to own her past and step into her
she
future. No, I'm just kidding.
it's time to grow up. She's 2.
Okay,
It's
Marlo.
time to own and live into what she is. She's been with us for a year and a half. It's
Yeah.
time to behave. But she legit needs to be walked twice. And we have a big yard and she still needs to be walked twice a day. So that is part of it. But truly, I do have to realize I do spend time
Hmm.
going for walks and things like that. And that's not just physical health, that's mental health for me. It's all of those pieces.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of that's not a bad thing.
Hmm.
That's not a bad thing. But it is a real thing. As you were talking, Shawna, about that quote that you read from your phone, it reminded me a friend of mine, Sarah, who's a teacher at our church as well. We work together. She's our women's ministries director. And so we work together on a ton of stuff. Dear friend. But she shared a quote in her teaching one time, and it said, be kind to your future self. So make decisions that are kind to your future self. So, silly example. But tonight, before I go to bed, make sure I get all the dishes out of the sink and into the dishwasher and the counters clean. Because when I wake up in the morning, that's going to feel good.
That
Right?
girl is gonna be so glad that bedtime girl did the dishes. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
So it's
good.
literally, that goes through my mind often when I'm like, oh, I just, want to go to bed, or I don't want to think about what I'm going to wear tomorrow. I just want to go to bed and I'll deal with it tomorrow. It's like, okay, well, let's be kind to my future self. Let's carry those shoes upstairs instead of just leaving them downstairs to deal with tomorrow.
One of the ways that I am kind to my future self, and you just might have to pick me up and put me in a whole different category after I say this to you out loud, but it's true about me, is I write notes to her. I write notes to my future self that I'm going to find in the future. I put them in my calendar. So things like, this is going to come back and bite me, but I don't love singing in the choir. And for years and years and years,
Right.
I led worship at our church. And I felt like it was my responsibility when we had a choir, because we only did it like at holidays and stuff, but I felt like it was my responsibility as one who led worship to sing in the choir. And it just was not life-giving for me, and it wasn't like a joyful thing that I got to participate in. so i
Right.
so i literally would go forward to the months when the announcements would start. It's time to sign up for choir practice is coming. And I would find, boom, like in October before Christmas, Shawna, just don't do it. Don't sing in the choir, honey. You don't like it. You don't like it, and you're going to regret it. And I literally just make notes to myself and put them out in the calendar like 12 months out so that I make better choices.
I absolutely love that. And I am going to start doing that. I am going to start making notes to myself.
No, we
Just
both go in
just
that
don't do
crazy
this.
box. Yeah. Hey, Jodes, just here to help you out a little bit. This is Jody from the past, and this is a decision that you didn't like so much. So it's going to show
So
up
let's do
again.
that different.
I literally, they're all over the place because I do this in January too. I'm like, hey, it's January. Things get super crazy in January. You just went through the holidays. You're not expecting it. It's just about to get real. So don't say yes to anything until you have just like prayerfully considered it. So I find these notes
Right.
and they meet me as I get there.
I love it. You know what? I also want to talk about just what you just said, prayerfully consider it. That is one thing that I think um belief is one of my values. My faith in God is my top value. And my first filter, I work hard and I don't always do it well. To be my first filter to be, is this what God is inviting me into? And so that
Mhm.
means then that I need to stop and pray. And it's easy to do when it's something I don't want to do, like, oh, well, I need to pray about that.
It's just
Right?
holy procrastination. Holy procrastination. You heard it here. Maybe someday
That's
I'll write
right.
a book, but I have coined that phrase and it is mine. So if you heard it somebody else, they took it from me. Holy
It started
procrastination.
here.
Yeah. It's how I
Amen.
slowly disobey the Lord. It's not a good thing.
Yep. Yep. But if it's something I want to do, even if my schedule is already full, it's very easy to say yes and then go, Lord, can you bless this? Can you? And
Yeah,
so,
I've done that.
then even like, yeah. And so even like in a season like this, when everything is busy, it's good to evaluate, did I just say yes because it's things I wanted to do?
Mhm.
Or are all these things God really did invite me into?
Yeah.
And then the truth is, like, it's busy, but He will give me the capacity to get it done. And, I might not spend as much time on one thing as I would have if I had, 6 more weeks to plan it. But the truth is, like, do I trust Him? Am I going to walk
Mhm.
forward in this? Am I giving it all that I can? And is this something good that he was inviting me into?
Yeah.
And then I can feel good about that.
So what are you going to share with us? Like I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but are you going to share with us what like your top values are and give me like an example of what how knowing that those were your values helped you to make a decision?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll share. So this is, I wanted to get my old book out so that we could see, you know, back in 2010 what I wrote. Because there's been a ton of work that God has done in me since then. And so I didn't grab that book. It's in my office and I'm recording at home right now. So sorry about that. But that
No
would probably be
worries.
a good, truer sense. But one of the things too, like um, faith and belief are one of my top values. And I will tell you, if you're familiar with Strength Finder at all, it's a great tool to use. It's a tool
Yeah.
online. You can pay and take this little assessment. And I will just tell you, like when you take the assessment, it's a timed thing, which always stresses me out. But they don't want you to overthink things. But one of my strengths, so it's just like even innately who I am is belief. And so if I didn't believe in God, I would believe in something. And so I do recognize belief is a strong held thing for me. But I do believe in God,
Mhm.
and I do believe in Jesus Christ as my savior. And so so that is a first filter for me. There are times when I don't live into that the way that I should. But that is a first filter. And then family, time with family is a very high value for me. And now even like with the kids being grown and our son is married and has a baby, and uh, my favorite thing, we've talked about this before, Shawna, my favorite thing is when I've got all the ducks inside the house.
Oh
Like,
man.
it's
Yeah.
it's just the best. Like we have a couple things planned in the next couple of weeks where we're all going to be together, and I am happy as can be about every
Mhm.
one of those events. And so time with family is important to me, and I will um I don't do this perfectly, but I really do try to be really present when my family is all together. It's easy to get busy with other things, even cooking, but
Right.
I like to just kind of make it all a thing, that we're together. And so even cooking, we have a big island in our kitchen, and so everybody kind of gathers around, and it's just a fun. Even on Thanksgiving now, I invite the whole extended family over and we cook everything together at my house because I like to be together. So
Hey, that's so fun.
it's yeah. So
I don't get to
I
be a
mean,
part of
that's
those, so
something
there's a little bit of sadness in
I
that, but
know,
that's because
too
I'm
far away.
across the
But
country. Right.
one of these Thanksgivings, we need you here.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
fun.
but yeah, I mean, a couple of other things are, I a lifelong learner. Like I do
Mhm.
like to learn, and so I have to recognize that that is a high value for me. And so decisions I make will kind of fall into that as well.
Can I say something about that, about the learning
Yeah.
thing? Because that is one of mine as well. You talked about the strengths finders, and one of my top 5 in strengths finders is learner, like lifelong learner. And the funny thing about that is I did not love school. I was not your
Yeah.
straight A student. I don't have a degree. Like I didn't, and yet that is at the core of who I am. I am always learning. I am always asking questions. I'm always wanting to understand. Like I'm not content to just, I don't exactly get what she's saying, but it doesn't matter. It's like, no, no, no. I want to know. I want to understand. I want to learn from you. I love learning from people.
Me too. I am with you on that. We are so together in that. And so, yeah, I think that's a super important thing. And it's, it's just kind of innately who we are. It's something we do make decisions based on that because we do like to learn. How I spend my time shows that I am a learner. So, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love that. One of the other things too, like, if I'm being honest, like security is a value for me. I make decisions based around that.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of all of those things, and whether that's financial security or physical security, whatever it is, like um, you have to really discern down what for you that even means, because security can mean a whole lot of things, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at the time right now and I'm like, how is it even possible? I know we don't want these our podcast to get too long, but like this is such a good conversation. Maybe we need to revisit it. Um
I think we
I
do.
didn't mean to cut you short at all. I just am
No.
kind of shocked that we're 25, 26 minutes in at this point.
Yeah,
This is a
me
big
too.
subject. There's
So
a lot to
it
learn.
is. It is. And we will revisit it. We will talk more about it. And
Okay.
because we're continuing to learn and grow in this.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, we'll have another podcast. We'll keep the conversation going, but before we do kind of wrap up today, did you have anything that you wanted to say yet? Any parting words in regards to as we consider our values and ideals?
I think probably the one thing I would give you is write them down. Write down
Mm.
what you believe your values are, and then pay attention to if that is really what you're living into. And if it's not, adjust it and be honest. Write down the values you're really living into, because we cannot change until we recognize who we are and
That's
what we're living into.
so good, Jodes. I love
Mm.
talking with you. I love learning from you. I love processing real time, what God's revealing. And I think part of why it's so easy to learn in conversations with you is because I feel safe and I can be honest with you, and we can talk about, the places where there's success, but also where there's places where there's not, and be honest about that. So I think in the
Amen.
midst of the whole journey, this is deep work and it's work worth doing, but we can step into it knowing that we serve a real God and he really loves us. He really loves you.